And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of Culturally Conscious Communications here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, here on and livinginblack.com. My name is Kidi Owado, aka The Conscious Rasta. Weekday mornings, you and I get in live. We come at you from 9 a.m. Pacific time. That's 12 noon Eastern time, and that's 5 p.m. GMT. We get together with you, and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives. We deal with entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, Pan-African affairs, sustainable development, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Monday. It is the 12th day of May, 2025 in the Western calendar. This corresponds to the year 6265 in the Kemetic calendar, to which we've realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIV Radio, LIV TV, here on livinginblack.com. Let me tell you what we have on the agenda for today's program, and I hope you will find this to be compelling. Let's go into the program today. Today on LIV Radio, we look closer at just what foreign multinational corporations have been up to in Africa. This is a critical look to see just how well these corporations have been respecting and regarding human lives on the motherland. Have they disqualified themselves from participating in the African future? We hold no punches. We take no prisoners. Now, I am not just flinging wolf tickets here today. We're going to take a forensic look at these corporations. We're going to ask, have they disqualified themselves? If they have disqualified themselves, then here's what we're going to do. We are going to take the initiative on this side of the ocean. We're going to stop supporting these corporations. We're going to stop supporting these corporations. It may not make a big change. Those of you who listen to this show are very, very minute in number. But we have to go by the old pebble in a lake analog, that if you throw a pebble into the lake, the ripples continue to reverberate into eternity. We're going to start something today. Let's go into the conversation. First, we begin with a quotation that I personally think is really quite appropriate for what we have in mind to talk about today. This quotation is from Dr. Ericana Chiramboro Kwao, to which we owe a great, great deal. She is the one whose initiative began the whole process of getting France out of Africa, getting France completely out of Africa. So Dr. Ericana Chiramboro Kwao, we owe you a great deal of credit. I do quote from Dr. Ericana. She wrote, multinational corporations must be held accountable for their actions in Africa. They should not exploit our resources without giving back to our communities. Dr. Ericana Chiramboro Kwao, may you live a long and prosperous life, oh great African sister. Now, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this here so I have a permanent record of where this is. And let's go into the corporations. We have identified a number of different corporations, multinational corporations, that are operating in Africa, for which African leaders, governors, and some non-Africans have made significant complaints about the way these corporations operate in Africa. I ask you, the listening audience, to make a judgment. And if you and I judge their actions to be untenable, then we need to boycott them. Number one on the list, Coca-Cola, an American beverage corporation with a significant presence in Africa, producing and distributing soft drinks. Coca-Cola has faced criticism for its business practices in Africa, including accusations of dehydrating communities by taking over local water resources and violating workers' rights in countries such as Colombia. And we do claim Colombia as our sister brother nation. Colombia is the third most populous nation in the Western Hemisphere of people of African heritage. So undeniably, we do claim Colombia, such as Colombia, Turkey, Guatemala, and Russia. In South Africa, the corporation was criticized for its economic support of the apartheid system during the 1980s, leading to boycotts and protests. Additionally, Coca-Cola's operations in Africa have been criticized for lagging in sustainability efforts compared to other regions. So, Coca-Cola, number one on our list. Do you agree? Should we boycott Coca-Cola? Yes or no? If you think we should be boycotting Coca-Cola, I need you to register a yes in the chat. We're going to keep going. And I say yes, we should be boycotting Coca-Cola. Next up, who do we have? We have, next on the list is Unilever, a British Dutch multinational that produces consumer goods, including food, beverages, cleaning agents, and personal care products, with extensive operations in Africa. Unilever, while having a significant presence in Africa and implementing various initiatives to address social and environmental issues, has faced several challenges and criticisms regarding its business practices on the continent. Point one, Unilever, workers' rights and safety. Unilever has been criticized for issues related to workers' rights and safety. In 2007, violence broke out in Kenya following a disputed presidential election, leading to attacks on hundreds of Unilever workers and their families on a tea plantation in Kericho, Western Kenya. And I do have friends there in Kericho. Point two, Unilever. Additionally, Amnesty International has reported serious human rights abuses on plantations of Unilever's suppliers, including forced labor, child labor, gender discrimination, and dangerous working conditions. Unilever, point three, environmental impact. Unilever has been working to reduce its environmental footprint in Africa, but there are ongoing concerns. The company has been involved in initiatives to protect forests and improve pest control, but the scale and effectiveness of these efforts have been questioned. Point four, in 2023, Unilever was rated poorly in the business benchmark on farm animal welfare, receiving an E rating, which indicates that the company has yet to demonstrate significant improvements in animal welfare in its operations and supply chains. Supply chain management. Unilever's supply chain in Africa has been scrutinized for its impact on local communities and the environment. The company has been working to improve its supply chain practices, but there are still areas where it needs to make progress. For example, in Vietnam, where Unilever has been operating since 1995, the company has maintained close relations with suppliers, but the environmental and social impacts of these relationships has been a point of concern. Economic impact and market practices. While Unilever has been praised for its efforts to reach low income consumers and improve their access to essential goods, there are concerns about its market practices. Unilever's Executive Vice President for Africa, Frank Braken, has acknowledged that the company is focusing on the consumer market rather than extractive industries. But the company's approach to pricing and market access has been criticized for not always being equitable. Last point, community engagement and social impact. Unilever has launched several initiatives to address social issues in Africa, such as malnutrition and access to clean water. However, the effectiveness and sustainability of these programs has been questioned. For example, Unilever has partnered with organizations to help families facing food shortages in East Africa, but the long-term impact of these efforts remains to be seen. So there you have Unilever's practices in Africa are undoubtedly controversial, but not nearly as controversial as number 3 on this list today, which is Nestle, a Swiss multinational food and beverage company that has a strong presence in Africa, offering a wide range of products. Nestle's infant formula scandal involves the company's aggressive marketing practices in developing countries, which led to significant health issues and deaths among infants. In the 1970s, Nestle was accused of unethical marketing strategies, including providing free or low-cost infant formula in hospitals and maternity centers, often through saleswomen dressed as nurses, to encourage new mothers to use formulas instead of breast milk. These practices were particularly harmful because infant formula often required clean water for preparation, which has not always been available in impoverished areas, leading to contamination and illness. Additionally, the use of formula could interfere with lactation, making mothers dependent on formula for their infants. The scandal prompted a boycott of Nestle's products in 1977, which expanded into Europe in the early 1980s. In response to the boycott and mounting pressure, Nestle agreed to create an independent agency, the Nestle Infant Formula Audit Commission, IFAC, and pledged to fully implement the World Health Organization's International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes. Nestle has also faced criticism for its practices in Africa, including the use of child labor and forced labor in cocoa production. Auditors have found evidence of child labor on Ivory Coast farms supplying Nestle. Additionally, the company has been accused of not properly checking its supply chain for labor abuses. Reports also indicate that Nestle's business practices have led to environmental concerns, such as the diversion of clean water sources for their factories, leaving local populations with limited access to clean water. Child labor. Children working on cocoa farms in West Africa under poor conditions. Forced labor. Allegations of forced labor and trafficking of children for cocoa production. Water diversion. Nestle's acquisition of clean water sources for its factories, affecting local water supplies. Environmental impact. The destruction of national parks and protected areas for cocoa cultivation, and supply chain checks, inadequate verification of labor practices in the supply chain. So when it comes to being corrupt, being crooked, and having a decades long record, a 50-year record of abuse of African lives, how many of us continue to purchase Nestle's products? We need to reconsider that position. I know I certainly am. From this conversation on, I am not going to be buying Nestle's products. And I'm also going to take a good close look at the Shell Corporation. Number 4, Shell, a British, Dutch, and oil and gas, I should say, company that operates in several African countries, involved in exploration, production, and distribution. But Shell knew its actions would cause catastrophic climate change. Confidential internal documents and Shell's own film, Climate of Concern, revealed that climate change may occur so swiftly that society will be unable to adapt to it. Shell warns viewers that, among other things, many climate refugees will be created due to rising sea levels and other catastrophic environmental changes. The film concludes with the argument that, quote, taking action now is the only safe insurance that we have, unquote. Nevertheless, the company continues to focus on fossil fuels. Shell is transforming the Niger Delta into a disaster area. Shell has been extracting oil from the Niger Delta for over half a century, which has earned it billions of dollars. Meanwhile, the majority of the people who inhabit the Delta region never see any of these billions and are forced to live in the midst of oil pollution, which has left a number of villages uninhabitable. Friends of the Earth Netherlands, together with 4 Nigerian farmers, filed a lawsuit against Shell in 2008. 10 years have now passed, and there has been no final decision. 2 of the claimants have since died, and the villagers continue to live in a heavily polluted environment. Shell is jointly responsible for murders in Nigeria. According to Amnesty International, Shell was involved in numerous murders, tortures, and rapes that were carried out by paramilitary organizations in Nigeria in the 1990s. Shell's executives were probably aware of these atrocities. Shell had, after all, insisted on military support, even after it became known that the security forces had killed, tortured, and raped demonstrators. Shell avoids taxes. Shell states that the countries in which it operates must benefit from its presence. But apparently, paying taxes in the countries where they drill is not what Shell means by benefits. Shell actually received net tax refunds in both the United Kingdom and Germany in 2016. Shell has registered as many as 44 private limited companies in Bermuda and 168 in the Netherlands, as well as in Mozambique, the Philippines, and Kazakhstan. This means a great deal of Shell's revenues go untaxed. These arrangements might not yet be illegal, but they are immoral. Developing countries could certainly use these uncollected tax revenues. Shell turns a beautiful day into an asphalt wasteland. Shell has had a refinery on Curacao in the Caribbean since 1915. The enormous demand for aviation fuel, a light oil product, during World War II meant that the demand for heavier fuel oil dropped dramatically. This left Shell's refineries with a lot of asphalt, a liquid oil byproduct. Shell simply pumped this asphalt into the swampy, mangrove covered areas of Busca Bay in Willemstad. By 1953, some 1.5 to 2 million tons of waste has been dumped into this lake, which to this day is called Asphalt Lake. Last point, Shell is involved in bribing at least one former petroleum minister to achieve an offshore oil field. So what do you think? Should Shell be added to our boycott list? You let me know. You let me know by not saying anything, whether you are even up to or into today's conversation. We continue, and I'm just double checking the different sites to see if anybody's commenting. We continue. The next one on our list is Total Energies, a French multinational integrated oil and gas company with operations across Africa in oil exploration, production, and renewable energy. African problems with Total Energies include: point, Total Energies has faced numerous criticisms from African communities and environmental groups regarding its operations on the continent. One significant issue is the environmental and social impact of its projects. In Mozambique, Total Energies liquid natural gas project in Cabo Delgado has contributed to a humanitarian crisis with communities experiencing violence, displacement, and human rights abuses. The companies declared force majeure in 2021, relieving itself of contractual obligations while still benefiting from the project's ownership. Another concern is the displacement of local communities due to land acquisitions for projects like the East African crude oil pipeline and the Talinga oil field in Uganda. These projects have led to food insecurity, household debt, and children leaving school. Total Energies has acknowledged these issues, but maintains that it adheres to national laws and international standards for land acquisition and compensation. Environmental impacts are a major concern. In Uganda, Total Energies oil extraction plans in the Aberdeen Graben threaten the Murchison Falls National Park, a critical biodiversity hotspot. The East African crude oil pipeline project poses risks to Lake Victoria, a vital water source for over 40 million people. Oil spills and water pollution are significant threats, potentially affecting millions of people and ecosystems. Moreover, Total Energies operations have exacerbated the climate crisis in Africa, which is already facing severe climate change impacts despite contributing minimally to global carbon dioxide emissions. The company's focus on fossil fuel expansion in Africa contrasts with global efforts to decarbonize, highlighting the tension between economic development and environmental sustainability. In summary, Total Energies business practices in Africa have been criticized for causing environmental degradation, social unrest, and human rights violations, raising significant concerns about the company's commitment to sustainable and responsible operations. Number 6, British Petroleum. A British oil and gas company with operations in various African nations, focusing on exploration and production. BP has faced significant criticism from Africans regarding its operations in their countries. In Nigeria, BP's activities were nationalized in 1979 due to allegations that the company was violating Nigeria's sanctions and using its operations to supply oil to South Africa. This reflects the broader context of BP's controversial business practices in apartheid South Africa, where the company was seen as a long-standing enemy of the anti-apartheid movement. BP was accused of violating the United Nations oil embargo against colonial Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, by supplying the then white minority-led government with oil smuggled through South Africa and Mozambique until the country gained independence in 1980. Additionally, BP's South African subsidiaries, including British Petroleum Southern Africa Ltd, Abidis Ltd, and South African Lubricants Manufacturing Company, were criticized for their role in the apartheid regime. BP's operations in South Africa were seen as a model of what should not be allowed to happen. According to the pro-divestment lobbying group Trans Africa, led by the late great friend of Africa, Randall Robinson, praise be his eternal name. These actions highlight the company's historical involvement in supporting regimes that violated human rights, leading to significant backlash from African communities and international anti-apartheid movements. Number 7, Siemens, a German multinational conglomerate that operates in various sectors, including energy, healthcare, and infrastructure, with projects in Africa. While Siemens has a significant presence in Africa, there have been reports of various issues and challenges associated with its operations in the region. One of the primary concerns is the perceived lack of transparency and accountability in its business practices. For instance, Siemens has been involved in corruption scandals involving allegations of bribery and kickbacks to secure contracts, which have raised significant ethical questions and strained relationships with local communities and governments. Another issue is the environmental impact of Siemens projects. In some cases, the company's infrastructure and energy projects have been criticized for not adequately addressing environmental concerns, leading to potential harm to local ecosystems and communities. For example, Siemens' involvement in the controversial Adani Carmichael coal mine in Australia has drawn criticism for its potential environmental impact, which may resonate with similar concerns in African countries. Additionally, there have been concerns about the social economic impact of Siemens operations. Some critics argue that the company's projects do not always provide sufficient local job opportunities or contribute effectively to the development of local industries, leading to a perception of economic exploitation. Despite these challenges, Siemens has taken steps to address some of these issues, such as investing in sustainable technologies and improving its corporate social responsibility initiatives. However, ongoing scrutiny and engagement with local stakeholders remain crucial for the company to build trust and ensure responsible business practices in Africa. Number 8 on this list. And we welcome your commentary to you, our listening audience. We extend the invitation, we extend our hand. There's much that we can do together, but we really got to get on point. We're putting together a list today of companies that perhaps we might consider boycotting. Next on the list is Volkswagen, a German automotive manufacturer that has established production facilities in several African countries. Volkswagen faces several challenges in its African operations, primarily stemming from market conditions and policy environments. One major issue is the dominance of second-hand vehicles in many African markets, which hampers the demand for new cars. Martina Bien, the director of Volkswagen South Africa, has emphasized the need for policies that discourage the import of old second-hand vehicles to stimulate the market for new cars. Countries like Ghana, Kenya, and Rwanda have taken steps in this direction, but many others have not, making it difficult for Volkswagen to achieve the necessary sales volumes to justify local manufacturing. For instance, Bien notes that a demand of 15,000 vehicles of a single model per year is required for manufacturing to be viable, a threshold that many African markets have not yet reached. Another significant challenge is the quality of fuel in some African countries. Volkswagen's South African plant can produce vehicles meeting Euro 6 to Euro 2 emission standards, but the poor quality of fuel in countries like Nigeria limits the type of vehicles that can be produced there. This issue is particularly concerning as Volkswagen aims to become carbon neutral and phase out support for engines that run on low quality fuel. These factors collectively make it challenging for Volkswagen to expand its manufacturing footprint in Africa, despite its long-standing presence in South Africa and recent investments in Ghana and Kenya. Number 9 on our list, IBM, an American technology and consulting company that provides internet or information technology services and solutions across Africa. Africans have reported several issues with IBM's business practices in their countries. One significant concern is IBM's alleged support for apartheid in South Africa, where the company was accused of strengthening white rule and not taking sufficient steps to support Black education and training programs. IBM was criticized for not assigning enough business activities aimed at Black South Africans, particularly in health, housing, and education needs. Additionally, IBM was accused of not increasing the number of Black employees and not reducing sales to whites. IBM's operations in South Africa were seen as supporting an oppressive system, contrary to the company's stated intentions. IBM's actions were also criticized for not aligning with international protests against racial discrimination and not supporting multiracial organizations fighting apartheid, such as the United Democratic Front and the African National Congress. These criticisms highlight the complex interplay between corporate responsibility and social justice in multinational operations. Number 10 on this list, Microsoft, an American technology company that offers software, services, and cloud solutions in the African market. Microsoft opened its first Africa Development Center in South Africa in 2019. Africans have reported several issues with Microsoft's business practices in their countries. One major concern is the company's aggressive lobbying and software donations, which often create the impression that Microsoft software is free, leading to a perception of exploitation. Microsoft has been criticized for locking African government agencies into costly multi-year licensing contracts, which can be financially burdensome. Additionally, the company's approach to software donations and aggressive marketing strategies have not always proven successful and have sometimes stifled local software development. Microsoft's business practices have also been criticized for their impact on local innovation. The company's efforts to promote its own products over open source alternatives have been seen as a hindrance to local software development and innovation. For example, Microsoft's launch of the Vine program, which is designed to share information in emergencies but only runs on Windows, was seen as a direct competitor to the open source Ushahidi platform, which performs similar functions. Furthermore, Microsoft has been accused of not following or complying with existing standards in its software, leading to interoperability issues and a lack of support for local needs. These practices have contributed to a perception that Microsoft is more focused on its own interests rather than fostering local technological development and innovations. Now we come to Africans' views on Bill Gates, who is, of course, the head of Microsoft. Critics in Africa have raised several concerns about Bill Gates' agricultural interventions and philanthropic efforts. One major criticism is that the Gates Foundation to agriculture may be harming, not helping food security and hunger. Critics argue that the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, a program funded by the Gates Foundation, has not significantly increased the income of small-scale farmers, small-scale producers, or enhanced productivity in the countries it serves. Instead, the number of undernourished people has increased by 31%, and crop diversity has declined. Additionally, there are concerns that the foundation's interventions are top-down and not responsive to the needs of African farmers. Critics argue that the Gates model of philanthropy magnifies power asymmetries, concentrating wealth and profit into the hands of multinational companies rather than empowering local communities. They also contend that Gates' focus on genetically modified seeds and agrochemicals does not address the root causes of hunger and poverty, which includes inequitable access to food and resource. African civil society groups have called for support for programs that help small-scale farm producers develop climate resilient and ecologically sustainable farming practices, emphasizing the importance of indigenous knowledge and inputs. Critics argue that the Gates approach narrows the democratic space for discussion of food systems in African countries and does not reflect the diverse needs and perspectives of the continent's farmers and consumers. In summary, critics argue that Gates' philanthropic efforts often prioritize market-oriented and corporate-controlled food systems over sustainable, and equitable agricultural practices, potentially exacerbating rather than alleviating the challenges faced by African communities. That was a lot. And if we just take these things separately and break them down, we understand that we African people, we have got major, major challenges to deal with in the future for our continent when it regards these multinational corporations and our indigenous needs for food development. We continue. The MTN Group. Although MTN is an African company, it was founded in South Africa and has expanded throughout the continent, often partnering with international firms. Africans have reported several issues with MTN Group's operations in their countries. One significant problem occurred in 2019 when MTN's stores in Nigeria and South Africa faced rioting, looting, and attacks during a period of xenophobic violence. Despite these challenges, MTN stated that they would continue to do business in Nigeria, emphasizing the way many of their stores were owned by Nigerian investors and employed Nigerian workers. Another issue is the poor internet connection experienced by MTN customers in some African countries, particularly in early 2022. Although the exact cause remains unknown, this has likely had impacted the quality of service and customer satisfaction. Additionally, MTN has faced criticism for its operations in Iran. In 2012, the advocacy group United Against Nuclear Iran accused MTN of enabling the Iranian government to track and locate individual cell phone users, which they claimed was a violation of human rights. They also were allegations that MTN may have violated trade sanctions by securing American telecommunications technology for Iran Cell, a company in which MTN has a 49% stake. Now, those criticisms facing MTN, I'm not so concerned about, but we are talking about other people having these concerns as well. These issues highlight the challenges MTN faces in balancing business operations with social and political responsibilities in diverse and sometimes volatile markets. Number 12, Heineken. The Dutch brewing company has multiple breweries and operations across Africa, producing the various beer brands. Africans have reported several issues with Heineken's business practices in their countries. These include operations or allegations of tax evasion, sexual abuse, human rights violations, and high-level corruption. Heineken has been accused of exploiting the weak regulatory environment in many African countries to engage in unethical labor practices, such as directly employing thousands of female promoters, often referred to as, quote, promotion girls, unquote, who were paid low wages and face pressure to engage in prostitution. Additionally, Heineken's marketing strategies have been criticized for targeting low-income populations with limited education, making it easier to influence consumer behavior. Despite these allegations, Heineken continues to market itself as a company that helps Africa, highlighting its economic and social contributions while downplaying the negative impacts of its operations. Number 13, on this list, it just keeps going on and on, is Standard Chartered. This British multinational bank has a significant presence in Africa, providing banking services across various countries. Standard Chartered, while being a significant player in Africa, has faced several issues that have impacted its operations and reputation in the region. One of the primary problems has been regulatory and legal challenges. For instance, in November 2023, the Competition Commission in South Africa fined Standard Chartered 42.7 million rand for manipulating the USD Rand comparison pair, including fixing bids, offers, and exchange rates between 2007 and 2013. This manipulation involved thousands of transactions worth over $100 billion, breaching sanctions against Iran. Another issue has been the bank's involvement in unstable political and economic conditions. Standardized Chartered has had to adapt to frequent changes in government policies, nationalization, and regulations, sometimes even transferring ownership to local financiers. These changes have led to significant financial losses, with the bank suffering heavy losses of over 250 billion pounds due to the volatile conditions in the third world. Additionally, the bank faced criticism for its focus on commercial banking systems, which have not always aligned with the preferences of local customers who often prefer international banks offering a broader range of financial services. To address these issues, Standard Chartered has been advised to restructure its operations, divest non-core assets, and shift its focus more toward consumer-oriented banking and institutional and corporate banking in Africa. Number 14 on our list, Johnson & Johnson, an American multinational company that has been operating in South Africa since 1930. Africans have reported several issues with Johnson & Johnson's operations in their countries. One major concern is the limited access to modern healthcare facilities, with less than 50% of Africans having access to such facilities. Additionally, there is a shortage of trained healthcare professionals, which exacerbates the situation. Johnson & Johnson's initiatives, such as the Africa Innovation Challenge, aim to address these issues by supporting healthcare entrepreneurs and fostering STEM education. However, the challenge focuses on specific areas like early childhood development, maternal health, and empowering young girls, which may not cover all healthcare needs. Furthermore, some communities face challenges in managing packaging waste from increased consumption, highlighting the need for sustainable innovations in packaging. Mental health care is also a significant issue, with 75 to 85% of persons living with mental illness in Africa lacking access to care. These problems indicate that while Johnson & Johnson is making efforts to improve healthcare, there are still substantial gaps that need to be addressed. We are today talking about problems with multinational corporations in Africa. We invite you, our listeners, to participate in the conversation as well. We do encourage we encourage us all to be active, engaging these corporations in Africa. And if we should deem them to be out of order, I say that boycotting is in order for us to address these problems. We're going on. We have a couple more here. Kellogg's, an American multinational food manufacturing company that has a presence in South Africa. Kellogg's has faced several challenges in Africa, particularly in establishing its brand and adapting to local consumer preferences. When Kellogg's first entered South Africa in 1923, the concept of eating cereals for breakfast was unfamiliar to many Africans who traditionally started their day with hot vegetables. This necessitated not only promoting the product, but also changing the cultural norm of the breakfast consumption. In Nigeria and other African markets, Kellogg's has encountered difficulties due to the premium pricing of its products compared to local alternatives. The company has adopted a strategy of introducing products at a price point 2 times higher than local untraditional foods and gradually moving up the affordability pyramid, with Pringles positioned at the top. This approach has been facilitated by Kellogg's acquisition of a 50% stake in Multipro in 2015, which is the largest distributor of food products in Nigeria and Ghana, enhancing its route to market capabilities. Kellogg's has also focused on improving its distribution networks to reach traditional points of sale that other companies cannot access, solidifying its position as a staple item in African consumers. Despite these efforts, the company continues to face competition from local and international brands, making it essential to maintain affordability and relevance in the market. Next, we have Panasonic, a Japanese multinational electronics company that has a subsidiary in South Africa. While Panasonic has been expanding its presence in Africa, there have been some reported issues and challenges. One significant problem is the company's approach to localization and understanding local consumer needs. Initially, Panasonic's strategy in emerging markets, including Africa, involved offering less expensive versions of products designed for developed markets. This approach often failed to meet the specific needs and preferences of African consumers, leading to limited market penetration and growth. Another issue is the company's focus on cost savings and profit making, which sometimes overshadows the importance of building strong, mutually beneficial relationships with local communities. This can result in a perception of exploitation, where the company is seen as primarily interested in extracting profits rather than contributing to local development and economic growth. Additionally, there have been concerns about the environmental impact of Panasonic's operations in Africa. While the company has made efforts to improve sustainability, such as through its, quote, Panasonic Green Impact, unquote, initiative, there are still reports of environmental challenges, particularly in areas with weaker regulatory frameworks. Lastly, the company's Corporate Social Responsibility Initiative, CSR, while present, may not always align with the most pressing needs of local communities. For example, while Panasonic has introduced health and hygiene-focused products, there is a need for more comprehensive and long-term cultural or corporate social responsibility programs that address broader social and economic issues. And lastly, we come to Vodafone, a British multinational telecommunications company that owns a majority stake in Vodacom, a South African telecommunications company. There are no specific complaints or problems reported by Africans directly related to Vodafone's operations in their country mentioned in the provided context. However, Vodafone has faced some criticism globally, which could indirectly relate to its operations in Africa. For instance, in 2011, Private Eye magazine and the Bureau of Investigative Journalism alleged that Vodafone's Swiss branches were used for tax avoidance, potentially leading to significant British tax avoidance. Additionally, Vodafone has been involved in complex corporate structures that have raised concerns about transparency and tax practices. In Africa, Vodafone has launched innovative projects aimed at leveraging mobile technology for social good. For example, the SMS for Life project in Tanzania used text message-based systems to manage stock levels of anti-malarial medications across 4,600 public health facilities, significantly reducing stockouts and saving lives. While these initiatives have been praised, the broader context of social responsibility, of corporate responsibility, and local business practices can sometimes lead to scrutiny over issues like tax avoidance or corporate transparency. Overall, while there are no direct complaints from Africans regarding Vodafone's business practices in their countries, the company's global reputation and involvement in potentially controversial business practices could influence perceptions and expectations in Africa. So these companies that we have been through have established significant operations in Africa, contributing to the continent's economic growth and development. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a window here, and I'm going to just put on the screen the corporations that we have been talking about today. We went through a bunch of them, let me tell you. And it's good about our being scrutinizing of these corporations. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this onto the screen. I'm going to share a screen so that you can see these corporations up close and personal. And you can recognize their logos. And therefore, you can be held responsible, your responsibility to take on these corporations and what they are doing in Africa. We went through a bunch of them today. These corporations have been, have established operations in Africa. They have been contributing to the local economies while also bringing in foreign investment and expertise. So we ask that you be the judge. You scrutinize these foreign corporations. I will, at this point, repeat our instructions from Dr. Ericana Chimbori Kwao. She said, and I quote, multinational corporations must be held accountable for their actions in Africa. They should not exploit our resources without giving back to our communities. So I feel as if I'm doing what I should be doing as a responsible media communications network. Yet at the same time, I really do honestly feel that there should be more that I can do. There should be more that we should take responsibility for. I'm going to need you who are in our listening audience to take this seriously. Who are the worst corporations in Africa? Of all of those logos you see, Some of them are bad, and some of them are worse. I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Just double checking, make sure that got no comments today. Not one. And I had one person, other than myself, hit a like button. It is what it is, but it's not very good. We're going to do the best we can to promote the idea that we can and we must take primary responsibility for Africa. So on that note, I want to thank you who have been participating, partially so, for being a part of it. Remember what I said. Shell is jointly responsible for murders in Nigeria. I want to thank you for participating. If you should choose to, I'm going to recommend a book for today is this book entitled, let me just show you the book cover. And the book is entitled The African Future, Empowering a United and Prosperous Africa for Future Generations. I did include a small subchapter on Dr. Ericana's efforts. I do support Dr. Ericana's efforts by every means necessary. Oh, yes, I do. Dr. Ericana Chiamboro Kwao appears on page 51 of the book. And I talk about her mission, promoting Africa in the Americas, uniting Africans, addressing Africa's healthcare crises, empowering the African diaspora, Pan-Africanism and independence, Wakanda One Village Project, and building positive relationship between Africans on the continent and Africans across the diaspora. This book is a really good book. It really is. And I encourage you, I do definitely encourage you to get this book and be a part of Africa's positive transformation. I want to thank you all for tuning in today to LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. I am going to get out of here. I am not running away. I am escaping. And we're going to do the best we can to continue to pursue African greatness. You've been tuned into your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are livinginblack.com. Tell your friends to tell their friends we have our own now. And we can be held responsible for what it is that we do here on your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio, LIB TV. We are livinginblack.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.